Okay, so you're ready to start manufacturing your clothing line. But the question is, should you do it domestically or should you consider going overseas to get it made? So there's a lot of questions that you're going to have and a lot of things that you need to think about. Today, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of doing either one of them. So let's discuss. Next, here on Making the Brand. What's up, everybody? Rob Norman here from Planet Brooklyn Academy, and this is Making the Brand Season 2, the series where I give you a little insight and knowledge on how to start a clothing brand, and if you already have one, how to make it better. As always, please hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything I drop when it drops. Okay, so manufacturing, the pros and the cons, domestic or international. Which one should you be doing? So let's first talk about domestic. Since we're here in the US and we're filming out in the US, let's talk about domestic. Now, one good thing about doing things here is that one, small batches. A lot of us are just starting clothing lines and we don't have the money to go full out and do hundreds of pieces. So you need to figure a way to get them done in smaller batches. And the US is good for that. So there's a lot of great places, especially if you're in metropolis cities like New York, LA, Atlanta, Florida. There's plenty of spots there that will manufacture small lots for you, which is great because you're just starting your line. You don't have the money to be able to roll out all this stuff. You want to be able to just produce the key items you want to do. So looking for those things and being able to do it here is great. One of the things you should be looking for is you should be looking for sampling rooms. Now, what is a sampling room? Well, a sampling room is exactly what it's called. They do samples. So in factories around the country, you can find places that do small numbers. So if you just start your clothing line and you're saying, I need to have samples done for my sales reps, these factories will do small runs. So normally for every style, they may do anywhere from 12 to 24 pieces. They normally don't go close to 100, but you can do small lots. In the case of you as being a new brand, you don't have sales reps, but you do need to have a small run done. So these sampling rooms can produce that. And a lot of times they can cut the patterns, produce it for you, and you can get it, fairly quickly, which is great. And you can find them. If you just look up in your local fashion areas, look for sampling rooms, you normally can find them. Now, another option that you may want to consider, if this is your side hustle and you have like a daytime job working in corporate, try this. If you see any of the cleaning people that work at your job, if you're working in corporate, just ask them, do they know of anyone that can do sewing for you? And a lot of times you'll find out that that's their side hustle and they actually know people who can sew for you. So I had a situation where I was working in corporate at one time doing my line when I was first starting. And I spoke to one of the cleaning people. I told them I had some sweatshirts and I needed to have linings put into them. I had this fabric I wanted them put in. And the woman told me, she said, I can do it for you, no problem. And literally I gave her like 24 shirts and I gave her a bunch of fabric, and like in 2 days, she knocked it out. I mean, her sewing was impeccable, amazing. And she charged me for all that, she charged me like $100 to do that. And she told me if I have more, let her know, because not only could she do it, she knew other people that can do it as well. So I could do bigger numbers. So I ended up finding out at other jobs, I would ask and started finding out that these cleaning people also did this. So this is something that you just got to ask around, but this is an option that you can find because instead of looking for sampling rooms, a lot of these cleaning people are trained in sewing, so they can help you out. Or just go to your local cleaners and ask the sewer there if they know somebody, because 9 times out of 10, they might be able to help you with that. So those are ways to be able to get your product made without having to worry about going to a big factory. Now, the second thing about doing things domestically is that your shipping costs. Shipping costs are way lower. You don't have to worry about paying an arm and a leg because again, it's domestic. You're just shipping within the States. So you can get FedEx, DHL, whatever you need to ship it. And it comes a lot faster when you're doing domestic. So you're able to crank out stuff, send it out, get it back, get samples and see things in your production, if it's right or not, a lot easier. Also, if you're producing somewhere close by, you can actually go to that factory or sampling room and watch what they're doing to make sure they're doing it correctly, which is another plus by being local with your stuff. Now, the third thing, which is great, is that time difference. Now, when you're talking about time difference, when you're communicating with factories, Overseas, you're talking about having upwards of 12 hours difference communicating if you're dealing with China or anything like that, based on where you are located in the US. I'm here on the East Coast, so there's a 12-hour difference with China when I'm talking to my factories. So a lot of times I'm talking with them at 1 a.m., which is 1 p.m. their time, one day ahead. So you got to be up all weird hours answering emails and sending emails at different times. Where domestically, you're only working with a 3-hour difference. Whether you're on the East Coast or West Coast, 3-hour difference. If you're in the middle, it's a little bit different, but still, it's only maximum 3-hour difference time. So again, you're not working on crazy hours. You're able to sleep. You're able to get your responses much quicker and within the same working time frames of work hours. So that's the pros of having that. So again, these are good things to think about when you're trying to decide whether to do domestic or international. Now, let's talk international. Now, right off the bat, international, we know it is cheaper to get things done. And the reason why it's cheaper to get things done overseas than in the States is because in the States, we have labor laws. We have fair wages. Everybody gets paid at least minimum wage. So when you figure out what the cost is and how many people you have on your staff producing in a factory and they're getting paid minimum wage, you have to factor that into the cost of what you're charging, a person who's trying to get their clothing made. So that's why stuff in the US is more expensive to get made because, again, over there, they don't have that problem because, again, they don't pay their people what they're worth, and we don't know exactly what their financial payments are, how things work over there. So that's why things are so much cheaper, and that's why people choose to get things manufactured overseas. And again, if it's an ethical standpoint and you're like, I don't know how people are getting paid, then you can stick with the US. But if you're someone with not a lot of money and you're trying to get stuff made, it probably makes more sense for you to get stuff made overseas. Now, another difference with getting things made overseas opposed to getting things made here is that factory outlets. You have more access to factories. Now, the reason why we can't do things here is because, one, we don't have those factories. Overseas has access to all the fabrics and everything. The US is not built to be a fashion manufacturer. We are manufacturing cars and other things like that. So this is one reason why we're only able to do small runs here in the US. Overseas, they are built for the fashion structure, so they're able to produce more. So over there, one, we get to have more factories that we want to reach out to. When you're here in the US and you say, I want to get socks made, and I see what socks cost here to get made, and I'm like, well, let me go overseas, I can get that made, but now I also want to get like baseball caps made. Well, if I'm here in the US trying to get that made, I may have to go to another company and I have to go look up where I can get a hat made because no one in my city makes the hat the way I want or the particular hat I want. And I'm getting socks made, but socks aren't made in my state, they're made in Florida. So I got to contact someone there. When you're doing overseas, most of those factories are all within their same areas. So when you reach out to one and say, well, I want to get something else made, they can normally refer you to somebody, another factory that's right there. They'll put you in contact. So all your stuff is in one central area getting made. So that's the beauty of it, of getting things made overseas, because all the factories are in earshot of each other. So you can get stuff made, oversee everything in one shot, opposed to here in the US where you're trying to get stuff made and it's like, yeah, I got to go to New York. I got to get stuff made in Florida. I got to get stuff made in Texas. Everything is not in one place. So when it's time to ship things in, your stuff is coming in from all over. You don't know the dates and things are going to line up perfectly. So getting things made overseas makes more sense when you're trying to just get multiple items produced. Now, other thing also going back to pricing, reason why it makes more sense is because I had to get socks made one season. I looked at a manufacturer here in the US. They were charging about $10 a pair to make them. Now, overseas, I found a factory that was going to charge me $5 to make them. So it makes more sense to go and make them overseas. But here's the catch. Is it really a difference? When you weigh the pros and cons about shipping and getting things made internationally and things made domestically, think about this for a second. If I get stuff made in the US, yes, it's going to cost more because of fair wages. So the price goes up on the product. But the shipping is going to be lower because I'm done domestically. Now, if I go overseas and I get it made, it's going to cost me way less. But now here's the kicker. It's going to cost me more in shipping. That's the problem. When I had the socks made, yes, it only cost me $5 a pair to get made opposed to the $10. But I got maybe about 3 dozen socks made. the shipping cost me over $100 to ship those to the States. So now you see, like, yes, I can get them made, but and between what I'm paying in shipping and then what I'm paying over here in the US for fair wages, they almost balance out. So what's the difference? Why does one make sense over the other? It's when you come down to volume. Volume is where it makes the difference. And as I said, getting things made overseas in volume makes more sense because they have the capabilities, they have the factories. US isn't set up that way to build, to roll out tons of clothing because, again, we are more with automotives and things like that. So when you're comparing apples to oranges, the difference is that, yes, in the end, it makes more sense to produce overseas because the more I produce, the lower the price gets. Yes, things are going to get, my shipping is going to be crazy, but I'm going to be able to produce more at a lesser rate. We're here in the US, I can't produce that much. And if I am producing more, yes, my price is coming down, but not significantly. I'm still paying the wages of everybody. So I'm still going to be paying somewhat of a premium. So it makes more sense to go overseas to get it made. So just think about that as you're making your stuff. Yes, you're just starting. Don't worry about so much if you have to, if you can't go overseas right now. If you can do it domestically, yes, because there are a lot of pros, as we said, time, being able to see your product, shipping costs. You can do that domestically. But as you get bigger, you may want to look at factories overseas, or if there's certain things you can't find to get made in the US, you can look overseas. Yes, overseas, it's going to be cheaper to produce your stuff. You'll also have more factories to choose from to get different things made. So those are things you may want to also consider. And just fabrications and fabrics. We don't produce fabrics here. You have access to more fabrics and things of that nature overseas. So it gives you another reason to consider going overseas and getting your stuff manufactured. So just think about the things I just told you guys and really sit down and consider what it is you need. How badly do you need to get things made? How much money do you have? Does it make more sense to get it done here or overseas? But at the end of the day, it's really your choice to think about. I just want to give you guys some insight into the differences between the two and really allow you to have an opportunity to think about it. All right, so that's it for this week's episode. Just want you guys to be able to have a little insight on your shipping. So as you start designing and manufacturing, you know what to do. All right, so that's it for this week. Until next week, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.